What's up, y'all? I'm Dre Moore from More Than a Dad. For y'all guys out there that's trying to get y'all beards looking right, I came across some new products from Grizzle Teddy Company. I got two beard oils right here, two different scents. One a blue scent, one a original scent. They both smell amazing. They come in these little cool baby-proof bottles so you could get them. You know what I'm saying? We more than a dad, so this is effective. Keep your kids out your beard oil. He also got combs, two different sizes. The wide tooth, got the thin tooth, so we don't discriminate against the little beards. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's beard can't be like mine. So all my dads out there, I'm gonna need y'all to go support Grizzle Teddy Company. Groom your heart, groom your body, groom your beard. Stay well. Check out Grizzle Teddy Company beard oil.
More than more than that.
Welcome to More Than a Dad podcast. I'm your host, Lou Mobley. I'm joined by the coolest guy on earth, Dre Moore.
That's good, yeah.
And today, oh my God, we have one of our biggest supporters, husband, father to, chemist, and professor. We got Jim in the building. How you doing?
How you guys been?
Yeah,
I've been along for a long ride with you guys, so happy to be here.
We
Excited.
appreciate you.
We want to shout out Avondale, Arizona. We see you guys in the downloads. We get a lot of Arizona. Didn't we do Phoenix a couple weeks ago? Yeah, so shout out Arizona for supporting More Than a Dad. That's fire. All right, get into the stuff, Jim. Fast five.
Uh-oh.
Favorite subject, math or science?
Oh, gotta do science. The math just supports the science. That's what it's there for.
Okay. Do you prefer living in Michigan or Pennsylvania?
Ooh. They're both pretty good, but it's hard to beat a Michigan summer. That's why I brought a little gift from Michigan here for you today. So, yeah. You can't beat a Michigan summer.
Listen, we know you a Lions fan.
I'll tell you what, it's got to be heartbreaking when you go your whole life without, maybe one playoff win, and then you move here and, 12 months later, Super Bowl champions. It's heartbreaking.
That's crazy.
Number 3, Calvin Johnson or Barry Sanders?
Ooh. Both guys, their careers were ruined by Detroit. Gotta go Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders.
All right. Favorite beer?
This Founders one is pretty good, but I think Bell's Oberon. That's another Michigan thing. So, but I'll tell you, there's a Delco Lager from 2SP. That's my new local beer around here for Delco. So.
Okay. Bill Nye, the Science Guy, or Doc Brown from Back to the Future?
We'll go Bill Nye.
Bill Nye. All right. Let's jump into it. This is More Than a Dad. So how's dad life?
Exhausting. I'm in those midnight feedings. Get up a couple times in the middle of the night. Phase of fatherhood. So exhausting right now, but it's all right. Blessed.
I wanted to ask you. You always calm, right? So.
Oh, I don't know about always.
No. So this, and I know something about calm people, right? That as a man, when I see other poised, calm men like Dre's like that, right? But just in the whole 11 years of knowing Dre, 12 years of knowing Dre, I only heard about him not being calm one time, right? So my question to you is like, how do you stay this calm, and are you always this calm?
Oh no, I got a temper, man. Greeks, it's a fiery passion, but I think for us, yelling is talking. So I don't know, but I mean, you try to do it. Definitely. I think it's you got to try and keep as much of an even keel as possible. But yeah, it's tough. Right now with my older son, he sometimes acting up. With his new baby sister around. That's sometimes it's you got to try and be patient, not lose it. But yeah, here and there. So.
Absolutely.
All right, we got this new segment we do. Let's get your thoughts on something.
Okay.
I'm going to describe to you a scenario that I found on social media, and we're going to ask you, what would you do if this was happened to you? So a family, father, mother, daughter, 1-year-old daughter, go out to eat at a restaurant. Say like a franchise place like a Applebee's or something. They go to eat. They notice their daughter acting funny, like she can't keep her head up at the table. Then they get up to leave after they pay their bill, and the daughter can't walk. So initially, they trying to figure out what's wrong with her. Mom and dad go take a sip of the apple juice that was asked for and ordered, and it instantly burns their chest. Come to find out, there was a mistake. Somebody mislabeled apple juice on the bottle, and they gave the kid alcohol to drink. So they rushed the kid to the hospital. Baby recovers fine. But what would you do if you were the father in that scenario?
Oh, I mean, I think, that's, again, that temper thing, but I think, and that's one of those kind of situations, you got to try and keep calm, and you just got to get to the hospital. That's the thing. My son has some allergy things. We've had a couple scares here and there, and that's a time where you just got to, even though it's scary, you just got to try and figure out a way to at least get to that hospital, get the help you need. I think that's the big thing. So it sounds like they were able to get the kid to where she needed to be and taken care of. So I think that's the big thing. It's going to be easy to lash out at the restaurant and like that, and there'll be a time for that later. But at the beginning, yeah, just the baby's health is the key thing. So I think children's health is always got to be paramount. So
Absolutely. That's a good answer.
It is a good answer. I thought he was going to say he was going to sue the restaurant and own the restaurant.
I mean, yeah. Like I said, there's aftermath and things like that. But yeah, I think the first thing is make sure you're.
Call it aftermath.
Yeah.
He said aftermath. It was very subtle. It will be aftermath. The baby's fine now, but
Yeah, but.
Absolutely. How did you meet Lou? You know me asking.
So our kids go to daycare, I guess preschool together. They've been together for a long time now. Probably a few years, and I will say something about Lou. He's a community builder. So not only has he built this community, but I think that he was really the one to kind of bring some of the parents at the school together as well. So. Really just, being someone who's outgoing, and really, most of the people I know in Pennsylvania are people I knew from other places I've lived that have also moved to Philadelphia, and, we know some people in town, but most of the other people I know is somehow through Dre, so.
No, just talk about me sharing with you my idea for More Than a Dad at that kid's birthday party.
Yeah, so this is probably September, October of 2021, so I know you guys are coming out, around. It's been a year of the podcast, but it was probably a few months before the first episode, and Dre pulls me aside and we're just sitting there, and he says, "I got this idea," and it wasn't at that point. It wasn't even a podcast. It was lifestyle, and he had all these big ideas of how he was going to try and share what it is to be a dad, and didn't hear much about it. And then a couple months later, I get a text message that says, "I'm out delivering sweatshirts. You want one? Here's my Venmo." And so I pull up, get it, and then an hour later, here he pulls up, brings me a sweatshirt. So I still to this day have it. But yeah, it was, we probably sat there for a good half hour, 45 minutes, and he had this vision, and so I'm excited to see how it's played out since then, and I think that. Hopefully as time continues on, this grows and grows as a community. So, but hey, it's a good way to get my Friday drive to work every week is you guys drop on Friday mornings. So that's a good way to finish my week, work week. So
absolutely appreciate it. Yeah, we definitely appreciate that. Have you missed any episodes, or what are some of your favorite episodes?
I think I've heard most of them at this point. I've told Ray before, I like the one with the guy who was a tattoo artist. That one was pretty interesting to me because I'd never heard anyone from that. And then, I don't know, there was one, the guy whose daughter passed away, or son, I can't remember what the child passed away. That one hit me in the feels. That one was a tough one. Yeah. But actually, and this is, thinking about, kind of where we've come. So we brought my daughter home from the hospital after being born on a Friday morning. And that was actually, we listened to, that week's episode on the drive home, going back. So very first, baby's very first car ride, was right. More Than a Dad. So.
That is what's up.
So my wife's a big fan as well. So. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we appreciate that.
What's been some of your favorite takeaways, from the show, topics or lessons from the show, as a father that you feel like you learned or gained from the
Yeah.
podcast?
I mean, I'm a hyper competitive person, so I think the big thing is when I hear about some of the things you're doing with your son to help him learn, and got him counting, like the big one was I found out he could count to 100. I went home and immediately got my son trying to count to 100. I gotta keep up. So I think it's that competition thing. So hearing where you guys have kind of come from, and sort of trying to, and I mean, Dre, I know, I think that the lessons of raising a teenage son, those are going to come in handy later on. So I've learned some things to come a few years down the road. There's things I never would have thought I'm going to have to face as a father. So I appreciate those lessons for a few years from now. So.
Yes, it's definitely a venture. It's definitely an adventure. It definitely is going to change. So what made you want to be a part of, like the More Than a Dad community of dads? You came to the Dad Link. That was actually the first time I met you. I'm like, I don't even know. I've never met a scientist in my life. Like, I remember saying that to you when I first met you. I'm like, that's crazy. And, like, what made you want to be a part of that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't too far to, I was coming home from work, and, Lou had mentioned we're all getting together, but, yeah, I think it's just kind of a way to meet more people. I've always been pretty outgoing, always wanted to try and meet new people. I think one thing is, so I've seen at a couple birthday parties now, but there as well, Royale, someone I never would in my whole life meet, but now, I know someone who's coaching. I can, ask him about how his teams are doing, things like that. So there's just, like you said, you've never met a scientist before. Nowhere in my life would I have imagined, meeting someone who's, on the streets here driving every day, and so just like little lessons like that. And, being able to catch up with Lou outside of that, going to some of the classes and things like that. Being able to find out about his work, it's to me, it's like big time Hollywood. So I get to hear all these things. So and for him, it's probably like just another day, But so I think it's always interesting to see what different people are up to. So it's been nice putting that community together. So I appreciate it, guys.
We appreciate you for sure.
All right, transitioning into your upbringing and your family. This is More Than a Dad. So can you tell us about your dad and him coming to America?
Yeah. So my folks actually met in Greece. My mom is half Greek, and she was over there visiting some of her family, and I think one of those love at first sight type situations. So, and originally, they're actually not too far from now going to be their 40-year anniversary. So continue going strong, but I think that they were going to live there first. My mom, after a little while, said, no, we're not doing this. We're going back to the United States. So my dad came, in his mid-20s, not much to his name, and, basically set himself up in Michigan and, kind of lived the American dream. A couple years ago, he was visiting the house, and he told me, he said, both my kids growing up, they got their own families, got their own places, I'm time to retire, I'm done. So now he just retired to Florida. So,
wow.
Yeah, so he basically, kind of a 40-year journey, the American dream. So.
That's just what was your relationship like with your dad growing up?
Oh, it was good. He was a hard worker. That he worked at a plant that made brake lines and fuel lines for the auto industry. Everything in Michigan's tied to the auto industry in Southeast Michigan.
Absolutely.
So, but he would anytime there was overtime to be had, he was in there getting it. But he would go in 2-3 in the morning sometimes so that he could still put in a long shift and then try and get home to get us after school. So. He always made time for us. He was my soccer coach for many years, and I wasn't very good, so eventually he switched over to my sister and coached her for a while, and she ended up being like a 4-year varsity letter winner. And she was all county a couple times, so yeah, so he got to coach both his kids, but always was doing everything he could for his whole family. So yeah, big family man. So I try to imitate him as much as I can. So
Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is anything on how he instilled in you or lessons you pulled from him that you use today?
Yeah, I think the hard working is one thing. I strive to try and be there as much, and I think that's something I struggle with sometimes. Trying to get home, and at the right time, get home in time for dinner and things like that, and don't always make it. But I think the other thing is just sort of always family first, you know. So I think, and I've tried to push that on the, you know, in-law side as well. You know, I want my, even if my family's a little bit further away, you know, my in-laws are closer. So I want my son and daughter now to grow up around their cousins and their grandparents and things like that, you know. So, and that's just, I think that's something the Greek way, you know, it's part of the culture, you know, big extended family. So, and I want that for my family as well. So.
Right. Speaking in like as like far as the culture, do you think your dad like instilled different things in you versus like what your peers' fathers may have instilled in them?
I mean, I think, I don't know if it's a cultural thing as much as, you know, he came from next to nothing. You know, it was a family of, you know, goat herders in Mount Olympus. You know, and you know, it's the truth. You know, and to go halfway across the world and, you know, learn a new skill, learn a new trade, and, you know, kind of make your way. And I think really he pushed us to try and succeed. You know, my whole life he said, "You're going to take care of me when I'm older. You're going to take care of me when I'm older." And so, you know, I think it always pushed me to try and do my best, you know, knowing that, you know, I wanted to try and strive for excellence as well. So I think that's something. I think, you know, with Greeks too, it's the culture and faith are intertwined too, you know. So and I'm trying to do the same with our family now. We've got a church in Broomall, and so, you know, trying to see what we can do to kind of bring everyone together. It's, you know, Greek and Greek Orthodox are not two separate things. They are one and the same, you know. And so I think that's another thing he helped with. So
Absolutely.
I want to talk about marriage. Every time I get a dad in that's married and a father, that's like a thing for me. You know, so like I'm gonna just put you really on the spot. Like, how did you know your wife was the one?
Oh man, so we met in Chapel Hill. We were going to school together, and we were in doing research together. And I mean, when you're a grad student, you're pulling, you know, 60, 70, you know, sometimes 80-hour weeks. It can be crazy. So you're spending that much time with someone, you know, and, you know, then, you know, maybe you're going out after to the bar, something like that. If you spend most of your time with someone, eventually, you know, maybe the sparks fly a little bit. I always joke with her a little bit. She, you know, she tells it maybe differently, but I say that she came after me first, you know. So, but no, after that, you know, sometimes in our profession, if you want to keep moving forward, you have to make some sacrifices. So we lived apart from each other for a couple of years. She moved here before I did, so, you know, we did our best to try and see each other at that point. Made things a little bit challenging. We made it work. You know, I think the one thing that maybe ended up being better was we actually got married out here while we were living separately, but that meant maybe I didn't have to do as much of the wedding planning. So I don't know if that was a good thing. It was a good thing for me. I don't know. You'd have to ask her how she felt about it, but yeah. But you know, now we've, you know, got our roots here, and, you know, I think that it's just, you know, always trying to support each other. I think another thing is, you know, in my profession, sometimes you do have late nights. You know, sometimes it is tougher to get home. Sometimes got to travel. And I think that, you know, her being a scientist as well, I think she knows, you know, she knew what she was getting into, you know, and I know that sometimes people in the sciences, you know, their spouses don't always know that, you know, it's going to be like that. And so I'm happy that I'm with someone who can appreciate that. And, you know, we still struggle from time to time, you know, and, you know, with what we got to do and trying to balance it. But I'll give a lot of credit to my mother-in-law, her mom as well, that when we are in need, you know, for a couple extra hands, you know, she's always there in a heartbeat. So that helps a lot too.
Absolutely. How long have y'all been married, and what do you think has been the greatest challenge in your marriage?
So I guess so this past fall would have been 7 years. So, and challenge, well, we'll get back to that, you know, calm versus temper. I think you know, parenting is tough, but I think the big change for us was home ownership. You know, there's always something to do, and so, you know, and trying to do things ourselves, and, you know, and sometimes it comes easy, but I know a few times we've come to blows a little bit in terms of, you know, trying to fix something or things like that, and, you know, as we make it through, it's good. But, you know, right now I think the biggest challenge is that sleep, you know, you know, and who's getting up in the middle of the night and all those kinds of things, but we've been through it before, so getting through it again, she'll be all right.
Absolutely.
In which ways do your wife compliment you, and, you know, your strengths and your weaknesses, and like how y'all cover that each other?
Yeah, so I think, you know, she's also good at, you know, kind of keeping an even keel, you know. I think that, you know, being professionally connected, you know, we help each other a lot in that way. I think that over time, I've made her maybe a little bit more outgoing, and she's been able to sort of rein me back in a little bit, and help me kind of remember sort of priorities and things like that in terms of what's most important. So we help each other with that a lot, but. We have very different interests, except for science. I think we're two very different people. So,
Right.
I think it's nice to, you don't want someone who's totally the same. We're able to kind of blend that with each other. But, outside of that, I think the biggest thing is, and I'll definitely commend her for this. A lot of times when people marry a Greek, they kind of adopt the culture too, and she's really taken off in it, and been able to integrate that into our family, and I'll always appreciate that about it. It's that not everyone I think is willing to do that, and she's really jumped head first in, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Do you have any marriage tips for anyone? Any premarital conversations or
marriage tips?
you could just give us one.
Cause like they say stuff like you should talk about credit before y'all get married. Y'all should talk about debt. Y'all should talk. They say these things now. In hindsight, I already got married. It's too late for me. Like y'all should talk about how y'all want to discipline the kids. Y'all should talk about how y'all want to educate the kids. Y'all should talk about where y'all want to live. Or just flat out marriage tips on how to make it.
Make it work.
Make it work.
Probably I think our initial big conversation was, where do we want to settle? But Philadelphia is really one of the few places in the country that, for what we do, if you want to both have jobs doing that, Philly's probably one of the better places to do it. And so I think making that deciding factor, but also having it be close to her family, I think that was, really one of the big decisions. But yeah, I mean, we figured the finance stuff out. I think that, we'd had a lot of those conversations along the line. I think the big thing now is knowing, when there is a disagreement, how long to give that space, let each other cool off a little bit, and then kind of bring it back together. But no, we've been, for the most part, on the same page about parenting, and I think the biggest disagreement now is about who's doing that 2 a.m. feeding. So we've had some go back and forth on that, but I realized that maybe I gotta take that one on, so she's doing the hard work when it comes to the baby. So just always being there, a lending hand. Yeah.
So we want to congratulate you on the second baby.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But we also want to get into like, how do you feel about starting over?
I mean, I don't know. I think humans are designed to forget those first couple months. Remember the good things and forget the bad things. So I don't know. I mean, there's little difference. I had forgotten how many times you get spit up on. How many times you might get peed on, things like that. So there was little things I forgot, but I think it's in some ways. I like it a lot this time as well, because there is another, little one in the house, and, being able to watch him become a big brother, and, just kind of shower her with love, but also, making sure he stays gentle. That's been a little bit, making sure he's gentle with her, and, but also letting him know that, he's still very special to us as well, but, and kind of explaining that, now, our family is bigger, and we've grown, and, there's enough love to go around. And that I think that's been a nice thing. But yeah, outside of I hate washing dishes. So I think I've forgotten how many bottles you got to wash. That's the one other thing, washing them bottles. But, yeah, I mean, the good far outweighs the bad. I'll say that.
Absolutely. What do you think is the biggest difference between it just being one kid versus it being two?
As someone told me, it's like first it's easy when it's one, then you switch to man, and eventually you got to be careful when it goes to zone. So if we're in man now, it's not too. I think it's just making sure that both kids are accounted for. I mean, I think my big fear now is, my wife has some great maternity leave, and so when she goes back to work, trying to get into the routine of, 2 kids drop off and things like that. But I mean, I've seen Lou, I've seen some other folks being able to go through and do it over time. So I have a few examples I can follow, but everyone warned me it's going to be a big undertaking, and no matter how many warnings you get, it is a big change. So, but
absolutely.
Before we leave that part, man, you got any newborn tips or like tips for dads to be more helpful with mom with a newborn?
I think you listen to everything she says, and you do whatever she says, whatever kind of help she needs, you give it to her. I probably need to take that advice myself a little bit more as well. But I don't know. I mean, biggest thing is always have extra rags, extra clothes right there in reach, because for that 3 a.m. diaper change, you don't want to be rummaging through the drawers. So, have your extra little pile right there. I think that's always the safety net that I've gotten.
Absolutely. Let's pivot into your profession. How did you become interested in science? And do you participate in any science? Did you participate in any science-focused extracurricular activities growing up, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I think originally it was just a subject I liked in school. My mom's cousin was a science teacher, so he kind of showed me some stuff when I was a little kid that I remember. In 5th grade, we had a lot of, sort of science and engineering activities in our class. And, they had this, they call it Young Astronauts Club, so learned a little bit about space. So those kind of things all pushed it. And then, I told you before, my dad was pushing me a lot. So he always, in addition to you're going to take care of me, the other big thing was you're going to be a doctor when you grow up. You're going to be a doctor when you grow up. So I kind of, in my mind, had always said, okay, maybe I should, study science, but, to try and be a doctor someday. And when I was in high school, went to this youth leadership forum on medicine. So it was people who wanted to, before they went to college, they wanted to be a doctor. They got to go shadow a doctor for a week. And I ended up shadowing someone in the ER. And I saw a tracheotomy right in front of my eyes. And I realized that I couldn't handle that. So I quickly changed my mind, was not going to be a doctor anymore. That I don't know if I couldn't handle the blood or what. So I did that, but still wanted to kind of study chemistry in college. And once I started studying in college, fell in love with it and haven't looked back since. So.
Absolutely.
No, what type of student were you growing up? Were you always like a honor student or like a higher student?
Yeah, I think it was like I said, competitive, So I wasn't always the best on the, soccer field or, playing other sports. My sometimes picked last for some of those things. So, but school, came easy. So that was kind of something I always gravitated towards and tried to push myself a lot. And, when I first started college, it kind of bit me in the ass a little bit because, I'd kind of been used to not having to work as hard. In college, a totally different level. So, those first couple of weeks, I said, okay, time to start hitting the books harder, and that kind of gave me a stronger work ethic, and I think that has kind of paid off as well. So it's kind of a combination of general interest, but yeah, just sort of working hard. But yeah, going through school, it was nice. I went to a pretty small high school. So yeah, college was definitely an enlightening thing for me. Having much bigger classes, just all sorts of different people. I mean, my preschool class was pretty much my high school graduating class. We went all the way through together. So it's a small town type of situation. But
so what was your college selection process like? Like when it was deciding on schools, or how did you decide what school you was gonna go to?
So my whole life I thought I was going to go to University of Michigan, and then I applied to a couple other schools in Michigan State, Central Michigan. Applied to Eastern Michigan, but over there, some of the schools have these scholarship competitions where basically you go take a test, and if you do good on the test, they do an interview process. And I went through that, and I got a good scholarship to go to Eastern Michigan University, too good to pass up. So I think it was really I kind of knew I was going to try and pay my way through if I could. So the definitely the financial aid was a big driving factor. But my professors there were amazing and kind of set me on the course that led me to where I'm at today. So it was a great place. And then where I work now, Rowan University. The reason I kind of wanted to be a professor there was it was similar school to where I went to, and so I could sort of do the same thing, give back to the students the same way my professors did to me. That was a big motivating factor when I kind of picked my job.
So you went to Eastern Michigan for undergrad. Where did you go for graduate?
So I went to UNC Chapel Hill. So.
Tar Heels.
Yes. So.
And did you study your PhD?
Yep. So that's actually something that a lot of people don't know. So they think if you want to go to graduate school, to be a doctor, lawyer, so those can get pricey. Med school, law school, dental school. Those things you're usually paying to do it. When you go for your PhD in the science, it's different in different fields. But in the sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, you generally are actually getting paid to go. So they cover your tuition. You get paid. It's not much. You're not making much, but enough to live. because you're doing research as you go. So you're kind of, working for the research aspects of the university as you go. So, I mean, I applied to a few different schools. I mean, at that point, UNC Chapel Hill was #1. So when I got in there, I said, no way, I'm not going. But it was actually pretty good too, because that was when the year I went that fall, a couple months before that was when they won the national championship. So in Detroit. So
everybody win championships.
He see every championship pedigree, but at home.
Yep. So.
So you just try to tap into like the financial aid and like breaking that down of like they will pay you to do the research for is it the graduate programs or the undergrad?
So it's all a graduate program. So generally you get your doctorate in some broad field. So we my wife and I both doctorate in chemistry, but our focus was analytical chemistry. So kind of like making measurements of different chemicals and things.
Okay, absolutely. Why chemistry though? Why was it chemistry?
Why not biology? Why not physics?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to when I thought maybe I was going to be a doctor. I think at that point it was really between biology and chemistry. But I think it was I loved my high school chemistry class. My high school chemistry teacher was phenomenal. Something clicked, and you guys, in Fast Five said, science or math. I think I like both, and I think that chemistry is a good blend of physics. Maybe a little bit too much math for me. Chemistry was a good blend, so I like that. But I mean, the kind of work we do now. It's a mix of chemistry and engineering, so it's I do something different than a lot of chemists. I'm not as much mixing beakers and things like that. So
it's crazy because chemistry made me like fall out of love with science.
Yeah,
because I don't like math at all. So like until we get to chemistry, like doing like biology and environmental science and all the earth sciences and all that, there's no math. And then you get to chemistry and like I'm like, oh, it's math. And then like to me, they was the same.
Right. What has been like your greatest like research or projects you worked on in your field?
There's been a few. And when I was a graduate student, we focused on. So I mean, just to kind of give a small thing. So we try to separate and isolate specific chemicals, the things you might want to measure in complex. When I say complex mixture, we're talking things like blood, urine. You test that environmental science. So if you're trying to measure like, pesticides in water, or if you're trying to like, the Olympics, trying to see if someone's on steroids, looking for steroids in blood or urine, or if someone who's maybe abusing drugs, you try to see what drugs are they on based on the urine test. So the kind of science we do ties into some of those things, but. When I was at Chapel Hill, we did some work trying to come up with ways of understanding the basics of how you put together these separation devices, and we're able to kind of increase the performance. That's one thing. But I think really right now, it's my students driving the work. I'm kind of more the coach of the team than really in the lab as much anymore. But these instruments we use are kind of the size of a small refrigerator, and we've been teaming up with a company in Utah and making them like the size of a toaster. So I think that's really, so you can take it wherever you want and then do things. So I think that's really, right now one of the things I'm most excited about. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like amazing. That's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. How was your transition from being a lab scientist to being like in the classroom, like being a chemistry professor?
So, I mean, I don't know. Someone told me before that, for the first couple of years, you're really focusing on what you're teaching. But after the first year or two, it's more about how you're teaching. So, it's keeping the students engaged, so you have to have a little bit of performance art in you, right? It's just like, I guess, doing stand-up comedy, right? You got to try and keep the audience with you. It's the same. Like, I got to keep my students engaged, and it's tough because, I know they've got, something in their pocket that they want to, pull out and, look on Insta or whatever the case might be. How do I keep them engaged? Or, if they've got their laptop out. I mean, the number of kids I've taught night class before, and the number of kids I've caught, because I can see through the back window the reflection watching Sixers games. It happens. So how do you keep them engaged? That's one thing. But that's definitely been something to work on. But then, in the research side of it, recruiting good students who are talented and passionate, that want to do the work, making sure they show up to do it. But I think one thing that I've really enjoyed is they're doing things now that I never thought I'd be able to do. They know so much more about computer programming, and 3D print. We do some 3D printing stuff that I really don't know how to do very much, and they taught themselves how to do it, and they're pushing what we can do a lot faster than I can. So I think that's been one of the things I'm most proud of. So.
Can you explain like some of the science hubs? I know you talked about like
Philly.
Like what are the other science hubs in America, and do you know any science hubs like abroad in like other countries?
So I mean, it really depends on the field. So when I said like Philly, that's here's one of the big pharmaceutical hubs, right? So if you kind of take from Wilmington, Delaware, up to maybe central Jersey, kind of Trenton, New Brunswick area, so that's one big area. Boston is huge now. Kind of down sort of outside LA is one, but then the Bay Area is another big one, and there are small ones. So down in North Carolina, they call it RTP, where there's kind of a combination, sort of in the middle of Duke, NC State, and UNC. So that's one area. Chicago's grown in that, and Texas, kind of Austin, Texas has grown a little bit. But for the kind of stuff that my wife and I do, really, yeah, Philadelphia, Boston, and San Francisco Bay Area. Those are some of the big ones. In our field specifically, funding, so I'm a professor, so kind of keeping the lab funded, applying for grants and things like that. The way we do, sometimes it can get a little bit tougher. And Europe, they've continued to support it. It's getting better now, and I think that the opportunities are more than they were maybe, let's say, 5-6 years ago. But actually, Belgium is a big area for what we do, specifically. So there's a lot of famous chromatography people in Belgium that I admire. So
that's just would you wanna push your kids towards like a career in science? Like everybody like is on like everything is tech based, and you're not really in the tech world per se, kinda, but not like super tech as the
You're
way
not.
people talk
You
about.
don't come off as like I'm gonna teach my kid coding.
Right, like it's more so like that's like actual hard science. Like would you push your kids towards something like that?
I mean, I think you guys have talked about it before of, what is our job as dads is to maybe like try and, expose them to as many different things as possible and see if something clicks, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've taken him to take your child to work day, and it was all chemistry demonstrations, and it was actually I was very impressed. He came home and explained like 2 or 3 of the experiments to his mom. He didn't know the scientific terms, but he described what happened, and I think that was something. But I mean, I think that as school goes, I mean, school's different now too. I think that when I was in school, you still had to learn cursive. Now I think they're teaching typing and coding, so it's a different world too. So I think so I think that's something that's going to change. But I mean, as both the kids get into school, summers are gonna sign them up for different camps, see what sticks, and go from that. But I think that I want them to be happy, and I want them to move out of the house, before they're 30. I think those things happen. Life is good. So.
Hey, yeah.
No, Jim, we want to thank you for coming on doing More Than a Dad. This is long overdue.
Yes, we appreciate you. This has been an adventure.
Well, hey, excited for you guys to kind of keep going on and moving on, and excited to see what's next. And thanks for sort of from the beginning inviting me to be part of this community. And it's another way to make Philly feel a little bit more like home. So
glad we could do that for you.
We appreciate it. Until next time, everyone.
We out.
Join the More Than a Dad family by following us on Instagram, subscribing to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to join our Facebook group for daily questions, motivation, dad jokes, and new dad tips. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to like, comment, and share our content with other parents. Last but not least, make sure you check out our new merch. The link is in the bio of our Instagram as well as the description of this YouTube video. We are truly grateful, and thanks for supporting More Than a Dad.
More than a dot, more than a dot.